Welcome to Ace of Pentacles, your career strategy and workplace wellness podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and I'm so happy you're here. Join me every week as we investigate how people design and discover their way through their careers. Together, we'll explore the science of well-being at work and discover tools and strategies to help us do well and be well. Hi, Devon.
Hi, Sarah.
How's it going?
Can my smile get any bigger on the screen? I don't think it can.
This is going to be one of those interviews where I feel like I'm constantly smiling because I have been so looking forward to chatting with you.
Thank you. I've been really looking forward to this, and ever since we met, and now it's been over a year. It's insane.
Yeah. Devon, to get us started, I'd like to share your summary, your professional summary with our audience so they know why you're here and why we're talking. Devon M. Pasha, CMP CED, is an experienced engineer, event MC, storyteller, and adjunct professor whose work sits at the intersection of creativity, confidence, and connection. After a transformative experience at the College of Extraordinary Experiences in Poland, Devon stepped into her calling, helping people feel seen, energized, and inspired through the power of storytelling and intentional experience design. A certified event designer and recognized Eventex top 100 influential leader, Devon has become known as the Lady in Red, which, by the way, we're going to talk about because I really like that. Bringing presence, warmth, and strategic insight to stages across the industry. She is the creator of the Spark Method, a transformative approach that empowers audiences to harness storytelling, presence, and resonance in their own lives and organizations. Devon teaches event design and strategic thinking at UTRGV and runs DMP Creative, where she designs experiences that spark change and create lasting impact. Devon Pasha, welcome to Ace of Pentacles.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Ace of Pentacles family, for welcoming me with such open arms. I'm really delighted to be here.
I'm so excited about this. Okay. So I just told everyone what you're currently doing, what you do.
Yeah.
But where I'd love to start is in your own words, Devon. Can you take us on your journey and share with us how you got here?
I would love to. And it's so interesting when you're trying to find a quick and accurate summation of something that is so massively impactful. And the best way I can describe it is in 2020, we all kind of had an eye-opening human awakening to a different sort of human condition. And I realized sometime in there that I had no idea who I was. Just had no idea. Someone's like, well, what makes you happy? I'm like, I have no idea. And what the realization was, which was sort of a rock bottom realization, was I had been living at the behest and at the conditional affection of others for so long that I completely lost any authentic sense of what made Devon happy. Not what Devon did to make her husband happy or her dad happy or her siblings happy or her daughter happy or her boss happy or her friends happy. Like, I was a chameleon. I knew exactly how to use my superpowers of empathy to dial in on exactly what you needed that would bring you joy, that would make you like me more, or that would give me the gold star or get me your affection. I could read that like a book and I could deliver that. But that was sometimes against who my own person was. And so when you're kind of at this raw moment of, I have no idea why I like me, I have no idea where I went. And it's like, okay, step number one, who are you? And that was the catalyst to this shift and this journey that did actually culminate in a last sort of step of awakening when I went to the College of Extraordinary Experiences and sort of culminated in that year. It was a special day. It was a special moment of my life. It was really me choosing to do something my own way for the first time. And it was such a beautiful experience. I had no idea what was going to happen in Poland, but it really was that last push into this next evolution that I have really loved being in. And so that's kind of from rock bottom to starting to make my own choices, to leaning into fear, to doing things afraid, to stop doing for others, start living with myself in mind, has created in 5.5 years one of the most transformative journeys and into the most authentic version of myself that I have ever lived, that I have ever been. And from that, finding real and authentic connections with others, with the universe, with colleagues, with myself, with my daughter. Like, this is where I think true joy can come from, because I finally just said, hey, I'm going to put me first in a very selfish, selfless version of I have to love me before I can do and love others.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills, Devin. I'm just thinking about anyone listening to this and how much that story is probably resonating with anyone listening to it.
Hmm.
Because I think that's a story that a lot of people ignore for a long time.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What were some of those pivotal moments in that 5-year period that really helped you come back to your authentic self?
One of the biggest ones was when I got a speaking coach. And I thought, I had gotten a taste for speaking. I've been doing it for free. I've been helping to facilitate at conferences in my vein, which was experiences and events in the higher education field. Shout out to my higher education peeps. And I was like, I think I like this. I think I want to start maybe public speaking and adding that. And I think I could get paid for it. And so I had cold called someone who has become one of my favorite people, one of my coaches, one of my biggest cheerleaders, before I taught for the first time. And I was having this raging case of imposter syndrome. And I had followed her. Her name is Courtney Stanley. Just followed her on LinkedIn. I cold called her and I said, hey, I am struggling with this. You're a strong voice in my network. And she sent me a voice message, not like a text, message back. She sent me a voice message on LinkedIn and said, girl, you got this. They picked you for a reason. Take a deep breath. Remember 3 things that you know best. Text me after. I want to know how it went, but don't let that little voice tell you can't do it. And from there, I reached out to Courtney to become my speaking coach and a business coach. We had a really lovely coaching relationship. And since then, she's become one of my mentors and a cheerleader in the fact where she speaks my name in rooms where I'm not. And because of that, I got my first ever opportunity to give a keynote speech. And it was at IMEX America. It was the fall of 2023. And I was terrified. And I couldn't even write this speech because of how important it was for me to give it. But it was saying things I'd been afraid to say my whole life. And that was actually the crux of this keynote. And it was called Reframing Your Scarlet Letter, Turning Your Shame into Strength. And it was about getting over some of these terrifying moments that I had been trying to get over my entire professional life. And so I kind of felt like people were going to come after me with torches and pitchforks for saying this stuff out loud. But that was the pivotal moment. That was, finding fear, reaching out for help, creating a friend and a mentor, and getting that first opportunity that really drove so much of the progress that I have made and the story that I've gotten into in these past couple of years. It was just finding someone who believed in me, who trained me up, and then gave me this opportunity that I earned and did well at it. That was such a huge catalyst to change in my life.
Wow. You know what I love about that story is that so many people right now especially are a little obsessed with like being the expert and being seen as the expert
Mhm.
and being seen as the person who can like guide others. And your success story, it seems, kind of started from a moment of extreme vulnerability where you reached out to someone who you knew you could learn from. And you were like, hey,
Mhm.
can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was extreme vulnerability, and it was, this really, it was paralyzing imposter syndrome. And I had had it a little bit in the past, but this one, I don't know why, it had really gripped me. And the universe put this person in my path, and I just said, you know what? I'm going to reach out. I'd never spoken to Courtney before. I followed her and probably liked a couple things on LinkedIn and maybe listened to one of her podcasts, but I had never really connected with her. She didn't know me well, but I reached out because I just felt like she was someone who had this gift of confidence in her voice. And I just said, hey, how would you get over imposter syndrome? And that's where this connection started, but it came from a moment of very raw fear. And it turned it into a relationship for someone who saw me and sees when I stumble and sees when I succeed and heard a similar story and said, "Hey, let's build a relationship. How do I become your coach and mentor?" And, the difference being coaches will really speak your name in rooms where you're not. And that was such a valuable relationship because it really did start connecting me with people who wanted to hear more of my story, who wanted to hear my voice. Then awards came and a trend center nomination and a keynote speech. And from that, more speaking opportunities and more visibility in the industry. And it really did snowball. But the snowball came from fear, not success. And success came after I was vulnerable and afraid and did something scared anyway.
What a beautiful story of what facing your fears can actually do for you. Devon, I want to go back. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't ask this question.
And fear is such a powerful, powerful driver. Yeah.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So sorry, like I don't mean like the connection. I was like not want to talk over you, but I think so much of the story, and I think so much, as we get into the arc or speak more, is that was also one of the first times I was afraid and did it anyway. Like
Mm.
that was one of the first times that fear didn't stop the driving. And before, I think fear was such a powerful, co-pilot that it could actually like take the wheel, turn you off of the path, completely stop the car, to use that driving metaphor. And it was the first time where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need you to like just stay in the passenger seat for a second. I'm gonna do this anyway. And from there, other bold decisions like, I'm gonna quit this job, I'm gonna leave this client, I'm gonna open a business, I'm gonna, all of this, I'm totally terrified, but I'm going to do it anyway, has been more of a propulsion down the path that felt authentic instead of listening to this voice to say, no, because really what fear is doing is trying to protect me from something that it doesn't know it's going to happen. So it's like, well, if we don't know what's over there, it's probably a bear and it's probably going to eat you. So let's just not do that. I'm like, but I don't know what's over there and I don't think it's going to cost me my life. So let's try it anyway. And that sort of learning to live and tango and be friends with fear instead of letting it be the end all be all and final voice of decision, that was the biggest catalyst. And that's what I talk about so often is that, the fear is great. Fear is literally this anthropological thing. It is like, I'm going to keep you from dying. I'm going to keep you from going into the cave with the bear or the dragon. I'm going to keep you from stepping off of a cliff. I'm going to keep you from putting your hand in a fire because we learn over time what will hurt us, and so it's this great tool. Except in a modern context where we can ruminate on things and remember, or we can even imagine scary things. Fear doesn't know that it's real or not. Fear doesn't know that you've just seen a scary movie. And it's like, oh my gosh, if you go into the closet, like that's where these things are. We're like, no, 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 that was fake. It cannot tell the difference. It does not have its own mind. So we have to remember to tell it, this is real and this is not. And that, I think, is one of the biggest jumps that it's hardest for us to make as human beings is just to remember we also inform fear about what it needs to know. And it's not the end all and be all. And, you'd asked about like things that were major catalysts on this journey. It was finally understanding the difference between when I'm allowed to tell it what to do and when it tells me what to do. And every single major catalyst point between that sort of rock bottom 2020 and right here talking to you on your podcast is because I was really afraid of something. And it's like, instead of like, I should stop, it's like, you know what? Every time I'm really afraid of something, I think that means it's time to level up because I don't know what happens in the next chapter. I don't know what happens in the next level. I have no idea. So if I have no idea, that means I need to lean into it and grow from it and learn from it. Stop being afraid of it because fear is like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. So stop going. It's like, now I know better. Now I know when that's happening, that's a knock on the door that says it's time to level up. It's time to do something else. It's time to take another step and go further on the journey and pave that road or turn the page or whatever beautiful visual metaphor you like. It's because I don't know what's going to happen. And so every single time I've done it anyway, quit the, fine job with the, 21 days paid vacation and the VB and the steady paycheck with health insurance to join an international firm and work completely on commission. Yeah, that was terrifying. Did it anyway. To leave that firm after 2 years to say, "This doesn't work for me anymore. I don't feel like I have enough space to stretch my wings. I don't like being boxed in. I don't like our working relationship anymore. It doesn't feel good for me. I'm not renewing a contract." Terrified. No idea what it's like to go out on my own. Did it anyway. Relaunched my own business as a solo entrepreneur. Terrified. Did it anyway. And it's amazing to see what you can do when you have the courage to do it anyway, but also to still be totally vulnerable and say, "Hi, network, I am terrified. I'm doing something a little crazy for me. Can I have a safety net?" Even if it's just a friend, even if it's a conversation, even if, can you introduce me to someone to make it feel a little less scary? That's what helps, is like, your tribe that kind of comes along with you while you're doing the crazy thing. That helps tamper it down a little bit, but that's kind of where you have to be both courageous and vulnerable at the same time, and find where the intersection of those are, and then just keep going. And I realize that's the hardest thing I could tell anyone, is to do a scary thing, do it blind and keep going. You're like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "I know, but I want to give you permission to do it anyway."
Oh my gosh, I'm so inspired right now. Devin, I know you do. I know you do voice coaching, and I know you're an event MC, and I know you do experience design. Have you actually considered being a business coach?
Have and have not. I think my superpower lies in helping people find their power and
Mm,
their voice and their courage. Where they choose to apply that is something that I think is very personal, but to give them the foundation to say, "What do you know about yourself? What is
mm,
your superpower?" And they go like, "Oh, well, like I'm really moody, and some people say I'm crazy, and like, oh, I've been like called aggressive." And I'm like, "I'm hearing labels. I'm hearing you're wearing a whole lot of labels that other people are giving you. What are your superpowers? Let's reframe that." So that is where I think my gift is for others, is to give them back their backbone, give them back their strength, give them a little bit of armor, let some of those scarlet letters fall by the wayside, maybe give them a bit of a cape that gives them that, sense of strength, power, and armor, and then they can take the steps that make the most sense for them personally. That's kind of where I think that intersection is for me. So not so much maybe business coaching, but like personal coaching. And it's happened by accident kind of along the way. People who found me after conferences or heard me after talks who just want to have a cup of coffee. Oftentimes I give my time to young women who are joining the industry. So, in their like late teens or just graduated from college or first jobs, who are really, really, really unsure. And they're like, "Can I have half an hour?" I'm like, "You can have a whole hour. And then you're going to contact me in 3 months. And then I want to hear from you 3 months after that. Here's some homework I want you to do." Because I think a one and done is not going to be of value. And I don't care that they don't pay me. I don't care if it makes me no money. I wish someone had done that for me in my 20s and said, like, "I got you. And I want to hear from you in 3 months. And if anything happens along the way, here's my phone number. You text me and I will call and I will text you back." And it's those little moments that make remember, like, that's the person I wanted. That's the voice that I wanted. That's the safety net that I wanted. I didn't get my safety net until I was well into my late 30s, almost 40. And yeah, so that's what pumps me up. And every time I give that hour to that student or to that recent grad who feels really unsure of themselves, I'm like, that's payment enough. No, it truly is. And I don't really mean to sound cheesy like that, but I have to remember there are things that charge my batteries, and that sort of coaching and that encouragement is something that is more in my vein, that really charges me up and gives me energy and value.
I can see you being an incredible mentor.
Thank you. It's We don't think to reach out for them often enough. And I think as young women especially, they're like, you have to do it on your own. Like, I did it on my own, so you have to do it on your own. And like, you have to earn my help. And how many of us young women sat in silence in our late teens and our 20s, not having someone who is like, "Well, let me show you the way. Like, let me show you how I did it to see if that works for you." Or, "How do we make you feel better about you?" Or, "Who can I introduce you to that would bring value, give you information, help you with a connection?" I don't think we remember how hard it was in our younger selves. And especially as our generations start to shift more broadly, you know, it's so different coming up in a fully digital age from those of us who didn't have to do all of this online, who didn't get cyberbullied, who didn't have to feel like they have to perform in a certain way. Like, that must be so hard. How can we reach out and say, "I got you"? And you always have someone to talk to, who is maybe not a parent or not a friend, or like someone like in the industry who maybe gets something specific a little bit better. And a lot of time when I do like women in leadership classes, I said, women who get to a certain point in their career become one of two women. They're the ones who broke through the glass ceiling, cut, scarred, having gone against every boundary, and they're traumatized and they're like closing the door behind them and say, listen, I'm cut, scarred, bruised for life. And I'm not opening that door for you because this is what I had to go through to get here. And I don't want to minimize my trauma and work by making it easier for you. On the flip side, you have one who does the same thing, who begged, borrowed, and steal, went against boundaries and has cut through the glass and gone through and said, I never want anyone to have to go through that. How can I keep my hand out and pull you up so that you can come up here without that? And I find that, not to be overly stereotypical, but that's kind of where we go in life. And I just want to be the latter who says, if any of my talks, my keynotes, my coaching, my one-on-one courses, even emceeing, moderating a panel, working with you at your sales kickoff, if any of those words give you a sense of you can take a leg up, then that's value added. Because if that is helpful and it precludes you from not having to go through something hard, doesn't mean you won't learn anything. It just means I don't want you to be traumatized by it on your way there.
Yeah, yeah. I think that right there is recognizing that everyone has their own journey, right? Not everyone's going to go through that same path. Not everyone's going to have those same challenges. And not everyone is going
Hmm.
to have the same outcomes, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have great outcomes. It's not going to mean that you're not going to
Absolutely.
have worse challenges, right? But everyone has their own journey. And I think sometimes I think about this. I love the way you talk about it. I think about this sometimes and I'm like, why do we live in such a transactional world now?
Hmm.
And why do we live in this world where it's like, this is mine. I got here. The success is mine. And it's almost like I have to hoard it or somebody else has to prove
Yeah.
to me that they're capable of my time or worthy of my time or capable of being helped by me. And it makes me really sad. I volunteered for several years
Yeah.
for a nonprofit that was a mentorship based nonprofit and I saw how much good we did as mentors in a volunteer setting. And
Hmm.
I think our society doesn't really have enough of those structures in place anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. It has become very transactional, and I think that's what I'm hoping is a bit of a shift of power that's coming up. And I really think that one of the things I'm very sure of, she was like, oh, like Gen Z doesn't know how to work, and they don't want to work, and I'm like, is that true? Let's just think about that from a different perspective for a second. They've watched, especially in our meetings, events, travel, experiential industry, like they've watched us beg, borrow, steal, work 100-hour weeks, leave our families at home, only drink Diet Coke, God forbid all the other vices, let's just say, that sometimes are pervasive in our industry, and applaud each other for this, what I like to name misery poker. I can one up you with my misery and my giving to and my just, this is a behavior. And they're like, yeah, I choose not to play that game. And we're like, but we thought we had to play that game. And they're like, no, we choose not to. And instead of us calling them lazy, why not call it an awakening to, is there a way to really be successful in our industry and to put in the hours and to make the difference without having to play that game? Yeah, I think there is. And I think that's what we have to remember, is that this is something that is teaching us a different perspective. And yes, we're going to still need to work the long days and the long hours, and we're still going to have to come up here and do this. But we can also remember in the other direction, we don't have to kill ourselves to do it, because our jobs are not who we are. Our jobs are what we do. And who we are can outside of that. And I think that there's something to that. There's something to that message where they say our existence is valuable outside of what we do for a living. And that's what we value, is that autonomy and ourselves, and how our work allows us to be ourselves instead of ourselves is only valued in terms of what we do. And I love that perspective. And it's so nice to look at that with fresh eyes and be reminded that things are allowed to change without diminishing value, and we can learn something from each other across multiple lines here. And mentoring, I think, is a great way to remind ourselves that people need something different at different stages, but we can always learn from them, even if they're brand new.
Yeah. I learn from my students all the time. And I agree with you. I think Gen Z has I think they figured it out.
Yeah. Like, you can look at all the funny memes and it's hilarious where it's just like, "Oh, no, I do not want a promotion, thank you." It's like, "Really?" That's like, "No, I like how much money I make. I like exactly how much authority I have, how much authority I don't have. I don't wanna take on anything else. I don't need additional stress. I know how to do this job. I like the income that I have. I'm good." And it's like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, like, I don't wanna do any of that. Like, I will leave at 5 o'clock because that is when I stop working for you and I start working for me. Great, thanks, bye." Like, it's this whole other way to think about what it means to work, and I'm here for it. I love it because for a lot of us, it's just at the very least, it's an awakening to, wow, that's exactly what it does look like from another perspective, is you climb the ladder and you lose all sense of autonomy and time and work-life balance, and, like, for what? Like, it stops being equitable at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the very clear signs of that power shift you were talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Devin, this is such a fun conversation, but I really want to go back to your story.
I'm like, "Wait, side quest." This is my ADHD problem. Side quest, no, we were on an original quest. Hi.
Tell us about some of the most rewarding moments along this journey for you.
I know before we started recording, I shared one. You were like, "Wait, we should record that because that one's actually important."
Yes.
There were a couple and little rewarding ones, but there were two that I would say had sort of led me to this path. The first was this first keynote that I gave. The timing of it wasn't amazing because it was actually before a lot of people had arrived at this particular conference. So I think it was like 8:30 to 9:30 or like 9 to 10. And most people got to this conference at like 11 or 12. So this 150 person room maybe had 35 people in it. And it was my first keynote. And, you have expectations of it being a packed house. And I was like, look, you prepared, you have someone you love here cheering you on, just go do it anyway. And I did to all 35 people, and I did my best, and I got good scores, and I was really happy with it. And, people were hugs and whatnot, and that was it. And I was like, okay, that was it. And later that day, I had someone connect with me on Instagram and write, I was too embarrassed to come talk to you in the moment, but I wanted to let you know I needed to hear that today. Thank you very much. I was like, oh, that's nice. I mean, a bit anonymous, but I'm so glad. Fast forward 6 months, I was at a large event in Texas and I didn't have childcare that particular day. And I wasn't going to go to this conference and do some observation. And the organizer said, just bring her. She was 6 at the time. Just bring her. You're only coming for a day. Just bring her. We'll make a big deal out of it. And they got her own registration badge, and she got to go to the badge ribbon to get every badge ribbon. And she picked us out matching suits. So here we are at this, international conference in San Antonio in our matching suits and having this awesome moment. And a woman approached me and she said, "Oh my God, are you Devin?" And I said, "Yes, I'm so sorry. I haven't met you before and I apologize." She said, "No, no, you don't know me." She said, "But I heard you speak 6 months ago at this conference and you probably don't remember. But I want you to know you changed my life with that talk." And I was just taken aback for a moment. And it's kind of hard to know what to say. And I had my little one with me, but uh, I was like, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I loved if what I said helped you. Let's connect again. I want to hear the whole story. And when she walked away, I realized I wasn't going to go to this conference and I wasn't going to bring my little one. It just felt like a lot. But there was something so special about the fact that I chose to go and I needed to be in this place at this moment. So my little one could hear because I travel a lot, and she heard that, mommy went and did something cool and mommy helped somebody. And she kind of looked at me and she was like, "Oh, is that what happens when you go away sometimes?" And I was like, "Not every time, or maybe I don't know." Is it, but that time. And she was like, "Okay, can we go get ice cream now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." It was one shining moment that I think gave her, I don't leave for fun. And, and I told her once, I love what I do. And I hope one day you understand that just because I love what I do doesn't mean I love you any less, but I love me too. And I love me when I do what I do well. And that sometimes happens when I do what I do well. And that makes mommy really proud of herself. And she was like she could finally start to put it together that, I don't leave because I don't love her. I leave because I also love me. And those two things can be true at the same time. And those are really pivotal moment. And the second one was actually where you and I met, was at the College of Extraordinary Experiences in Poland. And I was turning 40. And that year, it was 2024, I was turning 40. And I had applied to be a part of the college before I knew what dates it was. And when the dates came out, my 40th birthday was smack dab in the middle of the week that the college was in Poland. And I was like, thank you, universe. This is a sign. So I said, I'm going. And everyone's like, oh, but it's your birthday. And I was like, yeah, but you're not going to like go home and do like cake and ice cream and like cards. I was like, no, I choose not to. And that was a really cool thing to say is like, I choose to step into this next decade my way. I choose to do something I want to do. I'm not going to be performative for this birthday. I've been performative my whole life. I'm going to do me. I got into this thing I wanted to get into for years. It happens to be on my 40th birthday. And I cannot imagine a better way to step into a brand new decade other than being on the adventure of a lifetime with people I don't know. And I was fully prepared to just celebrate me like quietly. Like it's just like it just so happens to be my birthday, but like this, it's like it's not about me. It's like totally fine. People kind of caught on to the fact it was my birthday, but I'm like, that was really cool. And I stepped into my 40s more in love with myself, more aware of who I was, more authentic, with better choice, with more courage. I'm like, I choose how this decade's going to start. And it's going to be amazing because I broke this barrier for me, with me. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And I came out of the college with a couple of realizations. One, I don't know if you remember, there was this class where someone took a story and the writer of words and the siren of song kind of heard your story in like a minute and they made this beautiful kind of artistic connection to your story. And I got chosen for mine and it was the most cathartic look at a traumatic life. And it was all about fitting in. So I'm 6'1", big curly, big girl. You know, people can't tell that on camera, but everyone's like, wow, you're a lot taller than I thought. And the story I told is I've been off the growth chart since I was a baby. There was literally no pediatric growth chart that I fit on. I didn't fit into little girls' clothes. I was 10 years old, taller than my mom, and having to shop at thrift stores for adult clothes because they hadn't caught on that kids come in different sizes. So there's this horrible picture of me at 13 wearing this like blue silk suit because I was almost five, I don't know, 5'5", 5'6" at that point. And I looked like Janet Reno and Rosie O'Donnell had a baby. Like it is not flattering. Right? And just as I wanted to fit in, I wanted to fit in so badly and I never could. Until one day I realized like I can't fit in because I'm not meant to. It's okay. I can be tall. I can be curly haired. I can stop straightening my hair. I can wear red lipstick because like lips are cool instead of hiding. Like I just tried to hide everything to fit in, but fitting in means giving up everything that is beautiful and authentic and unique to you. So to watch these two artists turn that story, and I can't say it without choking up, it was one of the most cathartic and beautiful moments of my entire life, is to see, and they had music that they made up on the spot. And it went from this like just really kind of like dark and angsty music to this beautiful, just calm melody. Just it had evolved. And it was one of the most like just core shaking, beautiful moments of my life. And that day culminated in this big sort of cuddle puddle with our house. And all of a sudden, these people broke into harmonic song and they sang me happy birthday. People I didn't know from Adam. They found a cake. They made me a present. And it was the first time people celebrated my birthday because they wanted to, under no obligation to have to. And it was these moments that really were the biggest personal catalyst into this new story, into this new era, this new evolution. Just really living so authentically as big and bold and bright and in your face and red lipstick and curly haired and all 6'1". And I don't know how to clap quietly, and speaking quietly is sometimes difficult. And I take up space, and that's who I am. And I'm okay with that. And those were these catalyst moments that really allowed me to just be me. And I stepped into 40 really loving who I was and loving those moments and feeling celebrated as Devon and not the Devon who was really good at pleasing other people.
I love who you are, Devin. This is
I love that
incredible.
you know exactly who I'm talking about too. Because it's just like I was sitting there like, I mean, I am like cathartically crying and like our prefects are there, my whole house is there, and we're all in this massive hug because it was profound. The power of words and song was just profound. And that really is where so much of this other work came from. It's where my spark method came from. It's where my addiction with storytelling came from. It just blossomed out of real raw moments that you're aware of when you're super connected and never forgetting where you feel like you're best and always trying to hone back into like what that was, why that was, and using that as a platform to get over everything else.
Gosh. I that story, so that session was actually really powerful for me too that year at the college because I also
Mm-hmm.
shared my story and I was in this moment of my life where I was like, should I do a podcast? That seems really scary. And like I had been planning it, but I was just like, should I do a podcast? That seems so scary. That is so not like me. Like, who do I think I am getting on like camera
Right.
or whatever and like speaking? I mean, really, that's what you're saying. Who do I think I am? And that session was one of the sessions that really impacted me as well. And I loved your first story
We
about
should thank them. We should send them a card.
we really should.
Byron and JV.
So I also really liked your first story about taking your daughter with you. I think that that story, Devin, has like layers and layers of like parenting advice and built into it. Because what I love about
Yeah.
that is you have this little girl and you're showing her what it looks like to love yourself. And I know so many parents that they're great parents because they believe that parenting is about giving and giving and giving and giving.
Hmm.
And I really struggle with this because I'm like, but like, how do you actually teach someone to value their joy? And it's not
Yeah.
by giving and giving and giving and giving, it's by
No.
showing that
Yeah.
you too value yourself. You are prioritizing
Yeah.
yourself, right? This is how you
And
prioritize.
absolutely right. Cause I mean, they're like, monkey see, monkey do, right? It's what they observe just as much as what you say. But even before they have the ability to speak, they have the ability to observe and to copy. And my mom didn't work. She stayed home with us. And, my mom is an amazing woman. And, I've really appreciated her story more as I've gotten into my story. Like we don't mean to turn into our moms, but we do anyway. So I have these fun moments where I like, so mom, another one happened again. I needed a hot glue gun for something. And I was like, oh God, mom, it happened again. But it was seeing that like my mom didn't work outside the home until she and my dad, had split. So I didn't understand how to model working behavior because also up until a certain point, I worked 9 to 5. I, would drop her off. I would pick her up. I was always home. I rarely traveled. Like, sometimes I would work nights, but it wasn't this sense of, when I really started traveling for work and being an entrepreneur that I was gone for, sometimes days at a time. And she's like, well, mommy, don't you miss me? I was like, of course I miss you. I miss you all the time. I miss you when you're at school. So but that doesn't mean that I don't like what I do. And it took a second for her to start putting that together. I said, I don't know that you'll understand this right now because she was 6. But I said, I want you to love what you do. And I want it to bring you joy. And I want you to be proud of yourself. I said, this is one of the first times I am really and truly proud of what I put into the world. I'm proud of what I do. And I just have to travel to do it. It has nothing to do with how much I love you. But I do want to make you proud of me too. And I want you to be proud of how hard mommy works. And I want you to be proud of moments like that. And fast forward, it was spring of this year, and I'd won an award, the Eventex award, and their certificate here and there. And my best friend in the world came to visit me. I hadn't seen her like in a while, and she brought her daughter down, and so we were having this like beautiful moment. And Shereen grabs my bestie. She calls her Auntie Zoe. She said, Auntie Zoe, have you seen Mommy's awards? I want to show you. And she was so proud to show her auntie that Mommy had done well. And I was sitting there in the back, like, just like, I'm not crying. No, that's totally fine. But again, it had that layer of she doesn't know exactly what I do. She couldn't really articulate it well if she tried. Mommy's a speaker. that doesn't like quite compute, but she's like, but I'm mommy won something for how good she did, and I'm proud of my mommy, so I'm gonna show this off. And that's where there's like minor echoes that just kind of or flashes of I did good and I'm proud of that lesson. And at least I know that I can just support it by moving forward and keep that sense of I want you to be proud of you. Like, and that's how and hopefully you're proud of me in that same way because I like what I do.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Parenting is hard. In case people haven't figured this out yet, there's no manual. This is hard. And sometimes you just need to be like, yeah, this is hard. And go ahead and make mistakes and try your best and just live by example. And they are young, resilient little tiny humans and they will figure it out and they will make mistakes too and they will get their heart broken the same way we did. And all you could do is be there to pick them up. But there is no blueprint for this. So if anyone's listening who's a parent thinking it's hard, yep, just keep going. They will be okay.
You're doing great. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Just just there's no blueprint. You didn't mess up. Keep going.
Devon, when you look at your career, you've done so many fantastic things and you're doing great things. And I feel like just a few years ago, you had like that moment of really stepping out into the world as your authentic self. What's next for you? What are you hoping to add to your portfolio?
Love that question because the best part is I don't know. And I love that I don't know because it means there's more possibilities that way. Like I don't have it planned out yet. I know, yeah, last year was my first full year being a solo entrepreneur, and I feel like I planted a lot of seeds. So this year, I'm very hopeful to see what's blooming and blossoming and sort of following where most of the seeds took root. And if they didn't take root over here, okay, like, just where do I need to spend more time? What can I do to keep that going? What relationships can I continue to build? And following the path kind of as it goes, I'm welcoming in more abundance this year. Again, as a solo entrepreneur, it's sometimes hard to feel like you're not chasing money and you're just taking everything because there's a dollar line associated with it. And I'm hoping this year to attract the type of clients that are aligned with my message, to attract the clients that see value in these sorts of transformationals and engineered experiences. It's not a transactional, just come read the script, but like, how can you help us strategize success and engagement here? So looking to attract those types of clients and seeing where that goes. I did my first higher ed consulting already this year. So getting back into my higher ed roots, but bringing my more authentic strategic consultation self to that world, which was a fantastic experience. I felt like I was giving back to people who I have worked with. I did a sales kickoff already this year. So working with a sales team, but again, helping the team figure out the best versions of themselves as individuals to then help the bottom line of the organization. But they had to love themselves, to love their work, to see it aligned with their values and then put themselves into it. So being able to take Spark and put it into a sales organization and seeing, I thought it went particularly well. Everyone was smiling. They left saying they're empowered and invigorated and motivated and hungry, a fresh perspective, looking for ideal changes, being, from transactional to proactive with their clients. Like that's the type of behavior change we wanted to see. I was like, I'm not here to teach you sales. I'd love to learn something from you if you're willing to give some tips and tricks, but I'm here to make you a better version of you, to know your strengths, to not wear your labels, to feel super. And then how can you take that and align it with empathy skills, to align it with how well you listen, to align it with a proactive question, to get the best out of another human being. Then you apply your skills of sales and all that knowledge that you have and your properties and your KPIs. Like you do all of that. That's not for me to know, but it's for me to help you be a better person, to help you get there. That was really cool. So I'm like, can I do more of that? It's really helping your teams develop as individuals to make the whole better.
Yeah. All right. I also love that you don't know. And I wish for you that all of those seeds that you planted sprout into something
Thank
so
you.
incredible for the next chapter of your career. This is amazing. We mentioned the Spark method a couple of times. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that is?
So I was trying to find an easy way, like a mnemonic device for my brain to remember what I felt was important when trying to have an effective engagement moment. So whether that's an in-person conversation, whether that was designing an event, whether it's through consultation, just a way to remember some of these pillars that make engagement effective, that drive real behavior change, that create memorable moments. So Spark kind of came from my aligning that as something I could remember, But then I'm like, well, it's kind of like a thing and it kind of aligns with my brand. And I add a little bit of light and I use a little like twinkle, not like a firecracker, just because it's just a little like, and it can go in a lot of different places. It could be a little spark, could be a big spark. And again, kind of aligned with me really leaning into the sort of red personality, which is another story to share. Spark stands for storytelling, presence, action or activation, resonance, and kinetics. And it's a way to remember, you can use all of them, you can use one of them, but it's a way to remember how to create great engagement and great memories. Storytelling. As I told you from college, the one line that always sticks with me is the shortest distance between two people is a story. Like, wow. I work on human connection. I work on events and consultations and stage programs, moderating panels, facilitating in person learning. It's all about connecting with people. And the shortest distance for them to understand what you're talking about is a story. And so storytelling is always the first way to look into creating an equal playing field, to create an equal amount of knowledge, to setting a foundation for putting something on top of it is what is the story? So storytelling is a big part of that. A second one is presence. Presence is sometimes something you have to teach others, but how you show up to those moments, how you have presence in moments you're trying to create, how you're bringing someone in with presence to put out a message or to create an activation. The idea of presence is a bit of ownership. It's a bit of commanding attention. It's a bit of finding focus, like a focus point for your brain to say that person. So how do you show up and command that attention that drives the desired behavior change? So on stages, for example, if you have a speaker up there who's kind of, in the closed body language and they're looking at their notes and they're just smaller and you're just like, I'm dying for you. Like, get that person off the stage. Like, your entire empathy system is screaming like they are uncomfortable. And in turn, you are uncomfortable. That's the antithesis of presence. That's what you don't want because all people are doing is just feeling the discomfort instead of hearing any sort of message. So you got discomfort all around versus how do you show up with presence, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of preparedness to create a space where people can feel activated and not have to feel your discomfort, but be activated to listen or to absorb. So action and activation is the next bit. We can't be totally still. Our bodies work on movement. Our bodies work on seeing action or repeating action. And especially in today's like attention economy, it's like action has to be taken like within seconds. Your brain has to be activated or an action has to be taken. So where are you asking for action? Are you asking questions? Are you engaging an audience? And you see me in digital environments. I'm like, hey, chat, put in here. Or like I have my MC coach. She gave us these little like clappers. So you just like, and everyone's like, oh, like something fuzzy happened. It's like an action was taken. And that always cracks me up, the little clapper. But it's like, oh, there was something. So now I'm reactivated into the moment because things are spinning. So R is about resonance. And resonance is really what comes to we want things to last. We want your message to last, the experience to last. So I ask everyone to close their eyes sometimes when I'm trying to talk about resonance. I said, I want you to think about one of your favorite memories. Could be anything. Could be, the day your kid was born, that you graduated from college, you had your first kiss, you got a new car, you got an A on a test, whatever it was. And I said, I want you to think about this memory, one of your clearest ones that you could recall on a dime. I said, and I want you to tell me or write down what is the emotion that is tied to that memory. So, because I guarantee you that is a very strong one of joy, of sadness, of elation, whatever it was, of love. Like it's the stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. It creates like a bigger and better anchor. So resonance is about how you are creating moments that people can recall. So where are you injecting emotion and action and presence to have these emotional moments that were like, did you like that event? Would you give to this fundraiser? Can we ask you to volunteer? That they go back to that. I have a memory of what you did. And it's positive enough that will actually cause me to take action. So you have to be able to recall it. So resonance is about how are you creating anchor moments that have this sort of comeback that can be called on that, have an emotion tied. And kinetics is about movement. Even when I teach, teaching online is the most difficult way to do this, but I do have people move their bodies. I'll have them stand. I'll have them put their hands up to the screen. Because when we're in our bodies, we're not in a super reactive part of our minds that tells us to stop doing something. So when I need people to be playful, when I want them to be creative, when I want them to give information without judgment, we move. So walk around the room and talk about this. Find a partner, but go outside. You have to connect across the tables. Like, even it's like you're across the room, you're now buddies and go over there. The idea of getting up, finding someone, shaking hands, and moving to a different part of the room, they've gotten out of this super reactive beta brain and are ready to really connect. So how are you injecting that sort of movement into your experiences? Having a cup of coffee with someone like, hey, do you want to take a walk around the block while we talk about this? Just so we move our bodies a bit. Like, oh, okay, this idea of movement and like sort of your body's in a bit of a focus mode, just like, oh, I have to walk, I have to talk and to breathe. Your reactive beta brain is on that part. So now everything else that you have at your disposal can come up to the forefront. So that's what kinetics is. It's like, where are you getting people out of this like super closed off place and into a bigger one? And movement could be a big part of that connection. So that is Spark. That's where it came from, and just become a great foundation for having conversations, doing events, working with clients, and reminding them that Spark can be something of value.
Devon, I love that because I think what that goes back to is something that event producers, event organizers, even like teachers, right,
Hmm.
forget is that you have to establish connection before content.
Yep. Every time.
In a room, you're with a bunch of people. If they're not learning from each other and they're not working together, whatever content they're getting is just like, it's usually completely it's a mess.
Yeah. Especially because if you're not sparking anything, and said if you're not sparking anything, this is the only thing that you're going to see.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
what I'll do, especially if I'm working with clients, is I will go to the back of the room if I'm like getting to observe them, and I'll take a picture from the back of the room and I'll look at how many screens are open. Because you can always see them in the dark. Doesn't matter. I see you. Like, your screen is not black. And I'm like, this is what I was looking at. Or you put it at this great panel, I take a picture of the back of the room, and I was like, half the people had laptops out. So you have this panel who you've prepped, and these people who are, paying them to give their expertise, or they've given their time and treasure, and they're looking out to see if people who aren't paying attention to them. It's the worst feeling in the world for your speakers. It's like, oh, is it me? They take it very personally. And it's like, I'm trying to activate you and I'm giving this information, and to sit there with no one paying attention is just gut wrenching. So why are you setting yourself up for that sort of environment, which is not great for your attendees? It's not great for your speakers. So now no one's having a good time. What's the point? Like, so we have to ask ourselves, what do we do differently? Like, what did you spark? Or where was spark missing? And could you take a 1% change? Just one. Don't have to go crazy. What is a 1% change in a positive direction? And does 1% mean 5% next year? Or, half yearly, so that in 2 years you've taken a 10 or 15% change. Not to, like do crazy things. It doesn't have to be like, like I said, I don't come in with with TNT. Like, I come in with a little tiny spark. Where can you just make a little bit of change and see what happens? And it's just all joy from, it's easy for me to remember.
Yeah. And I like that none of those are reliant on or dependent on each other, where
They can be
you can
used, yeah,
just do one of those things. Let's just pick one. I like that. Yeah.
yeah. For presence, it's like, listen, if you're not going to have a professional like MC or facilitator, and the CEO has to be here, or the boss or the sales manager, it's like, do they have presence? Could you just coach them on presence in the room, in the space? That could make a huge difference. How they show up, how are they commanding the space, how they're communicating. That could be a huge deal. I saw a lot of things, positive things, as people who do walk and talks at events. So it's like, I'm going to share my content with you, but we're going to put headphones on and we're going to walk around the city block, get some fresh air, see some cool murals. Like, so I get to move my body, which I value, especially after lunch. But I get to learn too. So now you're putting value statements together, but I also feel good because I'm in my body. I'm really learning, and I'm going to remember that moment more. Resonance just sort of shows up in that experience, because I got to move my body while I did it. So now I have more senses that are being activated. Again, they just kind of happen together, but it's all these examples of, it doesn't have to be difficult and it doesn't have to teach a lot, but pick one thing and you'll find that they sort of will align with each other. And I've used it from everything from one-on-one client conversations, sales kickoffs, to, 3,000 person MC roles, where you have to make sure that the CEOs look great. All right. How do we spark that conversation to make it, feel something to someone else and keep their attention?
Devon, thank you so, so much for your time today.
Oh, it's been
I'm
such a
so
pleasure.
inspired walking away from this conversation. Just to wrap us up,
Mhm.
Where can people find you? How can they work with you? Our audience, how can they support your work?
The first thing I will ask in supporting anyone's work is just to connect. Connect, LinkedIn is my favorite place to connect friends, to collect, I call them stars in your orbit. You never know which star is going to collide to make something cosmic happen. So the first request is always connect. Let's just connect and find a way to be in each other's orbit. LinkedIn, so it's Devon Montgomery Pasha on LinkedIn. So start with that. And then if you think that you're someone who wants to know themselves better, to get rid of your scarlet letters, to find your superpower, please connect with me. Send me a message. My website is dmpcreative.llc. There's actually a little quiz you can take if you stay on the website, and I'll tell you how to spark, whether it's your personal journey, your professional journey, to spark for your team. So there's a little quiz you can take and find out more about DMP Creative and what we, and by we I mean me, because I'm me. Party of one. But really, it's to connect. And if you know someone, and entrepreneurs, I know this is hard, but if you know someone who needs an MC, moderator, or facilitator, and you hear this, say, hey, can I make an introduction? Every entrepreneur in the world will say, thank you so much for an introduction, for an opportunity. I do that whenever I can for my community. So I always ask for that. If you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share the podcast. If you know someone who could use a little coaching, share my contact information. If you have clients who really need to invigorate their sales kickoffs, internal team meetings, stage programs, connect with me. I might not be perfect for everybody, but the opportunity to try is so valuable as an entrepreneur. So dmpcreative.llc, or find me on LinkedIn at Devon Montgomery Pasha. And it's the
Amazing. And
red. Can't miss me. It's red everywhere.
it's the lady in red. I will share all of your information in our show notes. Thank you so much once again for being here and sharing your energy and your wisdom and your own spark with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad we got to connect in this way, and to share with your listeners who are, I know, devotees of your beautiful messaging, of the light you put out into the world, of the spark that you give through your program, and who you connect with, and finding someone of value to share stories that push people in a great place. So Sarah, thank you for all that you do for our community too. It's nice to have another star in the orbit who shines like you do.
Thank you.